Have you ever noticed how some people treat faith like a fire extinguisher mounted on the wall of their life? They hang it up, never touch it, hope they'll never need it, and only reach for it when the room is already filled with smoke and they're thinking, this might be it.
That is exactly it. It's the ultimate break glass in case of emergency mindset. I said the prayer, my afterlife is insured. Now let me just grind through my week. But when you treat faith like an emergency extinguisher for your last day, you shrink something massive and life altering into a tiny worst case scenario tool, and you miss all the peace, direction, and strength it was meant to give you every day.
Exactly. And that is what we're digging into today. If your faith only comes off the wall when life is on fire, or you think it's something that only benefits you when you're standing at the pearly gates, you are completely missing what it was actually designed to do for your mind, your relationships, and your anxiety right now. Today, we're done with a break glass in case of emergency Christianity. We're talking about the immediate everyday benefits of faith. You don't have to wait for Judgment Day to experience.
To really understand this, I think we have to zoom out first and look at what faith actually does on a macro level. If you look at human history, anthropologists will tell you that we do not have a single record of a lasting civilization that was built on absolutely nothing bigger than itself. Faith, whether people want to admit it or not, has always been the glue holding societies together.
Right. And it is not just about sitting in a building once a week. It is the engine behind so much of what we take for granted. Hospitals, universities, charities, shelters. So many of these were born from communities that shared a fundamental belief that life has meaning and that we are responsible for each other. Think about disaster relief teams that show up before the cameras and food pantries that quietly keep families from going hungry. If you pulled that faith fuel out of the story, a huge amount of the care, education, and mercy we treat as normal would simply not exist.
Spot on. And sociologists keep finding the exact same patterns decade after decade. When people are deeply plugged into a faith community, you see higher social support, more volunteering, and greater family stability. It is not because religious people are flawless. Far from it. People make mistakes, and institutions can absolutely cause harm. But taking faith out of the equation does not just mean empty buildings on a weekend. You lose a massive engine of compassion, service, and moral training.
Which brings up a really fascinating concept, the moral compass. It is a phrase we throw around a lot, but what does it actually mean when the rubber meets the road?
It is that quiet internal voice that says, this is wrong, even when the cameras are off, even when you know you could easily get away with it. Without that shared internal baseline, how do we even function as a society? A moral compass protects us from each other. It is what makes a handshake, a promise, or a signed contract mean something.
Because if you strip that away, if there is no ultimate right or wrong beyond what benefits me in this exact second, things get dark incredibly fast. You end up in a world where power is the only currency. The strong just steamroll the weak, and betrayal becomes the norm.
Exactly. And you see people trying to navigate life without a rule book. Life is full of gray areas. There isn't a specific law for every single interaction you have in a day. In those quiet, unscripted moments, your moral compass is the only thing standing between integrity and just doing whatever feels good right now. If we are just cosmic accidents, why shouldn't I just take what's yours if I am strong enough to do it? Faith gives a reason for the rules. It says life is sacred, truth matters, and loving your neighbor is an actual obligation, not just a fleeting emotion.
That leads to a really heavy realization. When a culture or even just an individual decides they believe in absolutely nothing higher than themselves, it doesn't usually lead to this a utopian freedom. It often leads to a deep, heavy emptiness.
I think we're watching that play out in real time. I'm not saying someone without religion can't be good and caring, they can, but I'm talking about the bottom line of the story you live in. If nothing ultimately matters and we're just random accidents, hope gets fragile. Why get out of bed, fight for justice, or sacrifice for people who can't pay you back? The Christian story says every person bears God's image, so caring for the least of these is non-negotiable. Jesus said, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Matthew 25:40. That gives you a reason to get up, a reason to care for the unfortunate, and a reason to keep loving people and keep being a beacon of light.
It makes suffering feel like a cruel, random joke. If there is no bigger picture, then pain is just pain. There is no redemption in it. It is just a tragedy with no punchline.
And that is a crushing weight to carry. It feeds right into the anxiety, the despair, and the hopelessness we see skyrocketing today. People might feel free from traditional rules for a moment, but they are drowning in loneliness. We are wired to worship something. A human soul is not designed to live on a diet of nothing. If it is not God, it will be money or success or politics or ourselves. And whatever you worship ultimately shapes who you become.
So let's bring this down to the ground level. Let's talk about the foundation. There is an old story about two builders. One builds his house on sand, the other builds on solid rock. The storm hits both of them. Faith doesn't stop the storm, right? It just stops the house from washing away.
That is the crucial pivot. Faith is not a magic umbrella that keeps the rain off your life. It is the bedrock. And that bedrock gives you 5 very specific benefits right now, today. First and foremost, it gives you a bulletproof identity. In a culture where you are constantly hustling to prove your worth, faith steps in and says, you are already known, you are loved, you were created on purpose.
That alone cuts through so much noise. The comparison, the exhausting performance pressure, the fear that you are never quite enough. You can wake up and know your value isn't tied to your productivity or your social media metrics.
Exactly. And the second benefit ties right back into what we said about suffering. Faith gives your pain a meaning right now. It does not instantly fix the heartbreak, but it whispers that your suffering is not random or wasted. It can be used to grow you, to shape your character, or to prepare you for something you cannot see yet. You can lean into that instead of just collapsing into a void.
And you don't have to lean into it alone. That is the third piece, community. When you are genuinely connected to a faith family, you gain people who actually show up. They bring the meals, they make the phone calls, they remind you of what is true when your own brain is lying to you in the middle of the night.
Yes, and crucially, it gives you people to serve, which pulls you out of your own head. That is one of the greatest protectors against anxiety. Then, fourth, you get a moral compass you can actually live by. Your standard for right and wrong isn't dictated by whatever people are outraged about this week. You have a solid, unchanging standard outside of yourself. And you have a source of forgiveness when you inevitably mess up, so you do not have to drown in shame.
That changes everything. It makes you someone people can actually trust, which leads to the final, maybe most beautiful benefit, daily hope. Not just hope for a golden street in the afterlife, but hope for this afternoon.
Right? It is the quiet confidence of waking up and saying, God is with me today. He hears me. He is working even when I cannot see the machinery moving. That hope does not wait for a trumpet to sound. It walks right into your workplace, into the hospital waiting room, into your financial stress, and into your family drama.
It really shifts the entire paradigm. We have looked at how a shared belief system holds societies together and keeps us from descending into a ruthless survival of the fittest nightmare. We have seen how the alternative, believing in a void, leaves us anxious, drifting, and starved for meaning.
And most importantly, we have seen that the payoff isn't just waiting behind some pearly gates. You get an unbreakable identity, meaning in your darkest valleys, a community that has your back, a steady moral compass, and a daily hope that changes how you breathe and operate in the world right now. Yes, the eternal picture matters, but the present reality is just as transformative.
So if you have been sitting on the fence, or if you have been treating your beliefs like that forgotten boarding pass, and here is something to wrestle with today. Do not just ask yourself if it is all real. Ask yourself, what are you losing right now in this very moment by living as if it isn't? Because faith is not just about where you will spend eternity. It is about how you survive and how you truly live today. Thanks for joining The Huddle and thinking this through with us. If this conversation stirred something in you, send it to somebody who is wrestling with the exact same questions. We will see you next time.